Hello, getting my head adjusted there. I'm turned sideways. I think the camera's not getting me proper, but that's okay. TCI family, God bless you all. I love and miss most of you that I haven't seen for a while. For those at Jonathan's Refuge, we love you all so much. We see you often. And a few of you I haven't seen in a while, so I love you guys. We're going to be talking tonight about the law of navigation. Now, I'm taking this title from a person I want to give credit to someone. His name is John Maxwell. The book is called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I had the pleasure of this man being a personal mentor to me back at his church in San Diego. And before he retired from his church there and went on to a public career, a very successful career of being known as America's expert on leadership. And John has one of the 21 laws is called the law of navigation. And how do you navigate life's problems? And that's not easy. I mean, I think of every problem when I think of navigating that I've gone through. And I think about how I could have done it better. What did I mess up? What did I get right? Where did I do things right so I can repeat those and then find out what mistakes I made so I don't repeat those? A good leader likes to take a lot of notes about themselves. And so one of the things I was doing was going back through my notes. And one of the people in the Bible, and John Maxwell has a Bible called the John Maxwell Leadership Bible. So his Bible actually, every lesson in the Leadership Bible is like, as an example, I'm reading today through the book of 1 Samuel, the 22nd chapter. And in that same chapter, it's talking about the law of buy-in. And there's other issues on top of that. There's all kinds of different examples in this book of leadership. And you say, well, what's leadership got to do with me? If you ever had problems at a job, then it's got everything to do with you. If you want to get a relationship right between you and a female, or you and a male, or whoever you're with, leadership is everything. Leadership is literally influence. Nothing more, nothing less. That's what leadership is. It is influence. So if you want to influence someone to do something, you need to be a better leader. So how do we do that? We want to get around great navigators. Now, I'm going to actually be talking about some personal stories and some out of the Bible that have nothing to do with what John's talking about, but I want to use his keys here. Now, the first key he talks about is navigation. Navigators keep their emotions from clouding their vision. It's not easy to keep your emotions out of things. Matter of fact, in 48 years of living, my career started at 6 years of age, and I've never looked back. And in those years, here's what's interesting. In all those years, I learned something. I was a horrible navigator in the beginning because I didn't understand it. Now, I might have been very smart. I might have been fresh out of the school with all the book knowledge in the world that's out there and all the experts in the world telling me this is how it's done. And I'm telling everyone this is how it's done, even though I never did it, even though I've never built it, even though I never managed it. But the book told me, and that's that. You know, the book can tell you a lot of things. But you got to learn how to navigate. John ran into this at his first church. His dad was the superintendent, which means he had a bunch of churches, like a bishop. And John called his dad one day because he wasn't in his dad's jurisdiction. They send you to another jurisdiction usually. And he said, Dad, I'm sorry. I need advice. You know, I went to the board meeting. It was our first one. And all I wanted to do was get the door at the front of the church painted because it looks horrible. It's all pitted and ugly. And it looks like it's homeless people living at the door. So I asked for it to be a vote to come to paint the door. And everyone looked down at Clyde, one of the board members, and waited for him. And he said, I'm against it. Everyone voted I'm against it. And the motion was denied. So he's like, I don't get it. I'm the senior pastor. And his dad laughed and he says, so you think you're the leader? He goes, I am the leader. He says, you're not the leader. Forgive me, I've got bad allergies. So if you hear me sniffling, I'm trying to keep my nose up and not running. He said, you're not the leader. Clyde's the leader. So if you want to get something done, you got to get Clyde to get his approval. But I'm the boss. You might be the boss, but you're not the leader. You might be the positional leader, meaning you were put in a position. I am the leader. Yes, they might have said you're the leader, but that doesn't mean you're the real leader. John realized he had to go meet with this Clyde guy, and he met with them, and he was on his farm, and he says, could I spend the day doing chores with you? He wanted to get to know the man. And in doing so, and in that time of his giving of his own free labor to help this man on his farm, he asked questions like, Clyde, what would you think about if you and your wife, a young 20-year-old couple with your first, second child, walking up to our church? What do you think that front door says to you? And then, in asking it in that way, after showing that he cared about him and he wasn't just coming in there with some big idea because I got a better idea, he had to earn that. He hadn't earned it yet. See, there's things in life you got to earn before you can just walk into people and tell them how to do things. They're not going to look at you just like they didn't look at John Maxwell, just like they didn't look at Jonathan Brown. I had to learn to earn my Clydes. So he said, Pastor, that door does look pretty bad. Matter of fact, next month at the board meeting, I think I'm going to actually, if you don't mind, would you mind? I'd like to put that motion back on the table. We need to get it painted. Next month came. Clyde said, Pastor, last month we voted on that door, and now more I think about it, I think that I'd like to ask that motion to be put back up. So the pastor put it back up, asked for votes. Everyone looked at Clyde. Clyde said, I want it to happen. Everyone said, we want it to happen, and the things were done. So what's the moral of that story? Who was the real leader? The real person was it Clyde? Well, he was the real leader, but who was the real navigator? John learned from his father in that instance how to navigate. And so he had to learn to navigate the rest of his time at that church. He still was never accepted as the actual leader. Clyde was. So anytime he wanted to get something done, he didn't do it. Nope. He just went and had a talk with Clyde. Hey, Clyde, I got a great idea I was thinking about. Next board meeting, Clyde's got a great idea that he's thinking about. And the whole board always goes with Clyde because however Clyde votes, the board votes. You see, he learned how to navigate his board. He learned as a man who had the power. He had a seminary, right? He had a 4-year degree. Actually, he had 6 years. He had all these degrees, all the knowledge, all the expert. I'm the young kid knows it all. I was that same guy. And also, like John, I learned that valuable lesson. I was just a positional leader put into a place, and I had to earn that. So that's talking about emotions. When he said, keep their emotions from clouding their vision. His emotions in the beginning, he wanted to snap at that guy. I'm the pastor. I'm the man. You might be, but you're going to allow your emotions to cloud your judgment. Instead, why don't you go over and try to befriend the man? Why don't you find out what's wrong with him? Maybe he's upset. Maybe there's a reason you haven't asked. It's not my place to. Actually, if you want to become a successful leader, it is your place to. There's another story in the book, in the Old Testament, in the Bible, 1 Samuel, in chapter 24. It's titled David Spares King Saul's Life. King Saul was the first king of Israel. David was the second king. The king of Israel, Saul, had been earned his position because they voted for him. And God said, okay, you guys want a king? I'll make him king. But he fell out of favor with God because he broke a lot of bad rules. He was a bad king. He did a lot of bad things, a lot of murder, a lot of bad things. And so Saul found out that God had chosen another king. And that king was David. As a little boy, God sent the priest down and said that this is my next king. So Saul knew that he was going to be replaced. So he didn't want to do that. Well, long story short, David marries Saul's daughter. He becomes Saul's number one warrior after killing Goliath. You all know the story of David and Goliath, the giant. Right after that, he got the hand of the king's daughter in marriage, became the son-in-law to the king. And then that's when the king started to try to kill him because he was jealous. They were coming in from a crusade where they had killed their enemy. And the women in Israel were singing, Saul has slain his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. And that was all that Saul needed to hear, was that his people said he's a better warrior and a better king than he was. And all they were saying was Saul had killed his thousands and David his tens of thousands. Forgive me, I have to blow my nose. So David had to go on the run, and he had to live on the run because the king was ferociously hunting him to kill him. After all he had done for this kingdom, and I haven't told you everything he's done, because I encourage you to go to chapter 24 and read the whole chapter. I'm not going to read it, the whole thing. What I want to tell you happened is that the king was coming back from a war campaign, King Saul, and one of his troops told him that David, remember David, your son-in-law, he's trying to take your kingdom. He's not too far from here. We heard he's hiding in these caves over here. So he grabbed his 3,000 most powerful, ruthless soldiers, the best of the best, the Navy SEALs of Israel. He got 3,000 of them, and he went hunting with his general, David. And they couldn't find him, and so he went to take a sleep in a cave, take a nap. And so he went in there and he slept in the cave. His soldiers did a horrible job. They didn't check the cave out to see if there was a back entrance into it so that someone could come in, or there was an animal living back there or something. David found the king there. So he snuck down through this tunnel and he comes down into the back of the cave, goes to the king where the king is. He's with his general and the king is sleeping. And the general of David says, "You can kill him and this is over. You're the next king. God said so. Let's stop this whole running through the woods and mountains and wilderness. Get rid of this bum, since he's a bum already, and let's progress." Now, David was a man of integrity. David said no. He was anointed the king by God. Only God will take him out of that position, not me. And I will not raise my hand to God's anointed. But yet, he actually did. He went down while the king was sleeping and cut a piece of his robe off. And he wanted to show him that he could have killed him, but he didn't. Now, even in doing that, because I look back, would I have done that? Absolutely. I'd have gone a little step further. I probably would have jumped down, punched the king in the face, picked him up and said, "Hey, I just broke your nose. I could have killed you, you idiot. I'm not trying to kill you and I don't want your throne." But I'm not David. David cut his robe and he waited until he got up to leave and he was out with his troops. And David went to the head of the cave and he knelt down and yelled, "King Saul!" And he bowed his head to the ground to his king, because that's his king. He never tried to overtake his kingdom. While people tried to make him take it, he refused to take it. He said, "If it's my time to be king, God will make it so, and I'm not going to try to do it." And so David learned to navigate through these rough waters. And then on that one, he shouldn't have cut the robe, because even that cost him. That was he touched God's anointed by just cutting the robe. Again, I'm all for it. I'd have gone further. But my point is, David has had a life of learning to navigate. And these are just one more place where you're like, what do I do? Do I kill this guy? He's trying to kill me. I'm justified. I'm the next king. I'm the next guy. Instead, he backed off and he says, "I'm not trying to kill him. I want to show that I'm sparing him his life." Now, he could have done it in a little different way. He could have just woke him up and said, "My king, I'm not here to scare you. I'm not here to cut your robe. I'm not here to beat you up. I just want you to know I could have killed you. Your life was mine to take. And I didn't take it because I love you as my king and my father-in-law." That's what he probably should have done. But again, he had emotions, and his emotions got in the way there a little bit because he ended up cutting the robe. And again, he touched the king. So you really got to look at that one when it talks about emotions. When you make those decisions and how you navigate something, it's important you don't allow your emotions to get involved, because if I did, I promise you, if I allowed my emotions to run my companies, I'd fire everybody all the time. I don't allow my emotions to run my company. I'm a very emotional person, but when it comes to my decision process, I'll take all my emotions and just check them at the door for a second. But that's usually about it. It takes only a second to get your emotions to snap. So just as you put it down for a second, they can pop back up in a second. So you got to watch your emotions when you're making choices and decisions. Number 2, he talks about the navigators draw on their past experience. When I was a young 20-year-old kid, I had already lived in an empire, a very large empire that I lived, built, and created. At 12 and a half, I started one of the largest drug rings in Atlanta, Georgia. Before I was even 15, I was running an entire state for the Irish mob. Their rackets there. I was the skipper of a crew. So I had this life for about a decade. And then I became what we call an adult. When most kids were just getting out of high school and having their first loves, I had been running underground empires. Now, why do I say that? Because during those bad times in my life, your emotions can cause you to do things like punch people and go to prison for it, and stupid stuff. And I did make dumb choices because of emotions. But what I realized was, when I was in my early 20s, I started working and pastoring, and after I went to seminary and got out there, I had my business career also. I thought, hey, I'm the guy. I'm it, right? I know what I'm talking about. I've got this book memorized. I've got every book on leadership memorized. I've got all these great things, but I didn't have experience. And see, navigators draw on past experiences. So if you're young and you're like, well, then how do you get them? You got to get them. You got to get more experiences. And you can do that by volunteering. If you go down to your church or your local spiritual center or to a Salvation Army or a Goodwill, and you say, I want to volunteer to be a leader in your organization, how can I do that? they will actually plug you in, and you'll start leading groups of people to do all kinds of volunteer stuff. And getting people to do things on a volunteer basis will actually hone your skills in as a leader, so that next thing you know, you'll see your paycheck starting to rise at your business. People are like, why are you becoming so wealthy? It's because I'm becoming a leader over here on my days off, trying to learn these. I need experience. So how do you do that? You get it by going out and working with other great leaders, and tell them you want to become a leader like them, and plug you into positions to help them grow. And they will, churches and nonprofits, there's a ton of opportunities to serve your local community. And in that process, gain experience. But don't make the mistake just because you're young, like I did, and thought you knew everything, like I did. Now at 48, I realize I barely know anything. Now let's continue on. So the navigator examines the conditions before committing. Before you make a decision, you got to really look at everything. I don't make just fast decisions sometimes. It's rare. I should say it's rare. Not sometimes, but rarely will I make a fast decision. But my brain works weird. So everything that you put me in a scenario, I see 50 options at one time. If I pick option, let's say 38, I see 50 new options, and I can pick option 17 and see 50 new, and pick 16 and see 50 new. And my brain can, in seconds, I can be down years in a relationship. And all I said was hi to a person, but my brain can play every scenario like that. So can I act quick? Sure. But do I? When I was younger, I did. And the older I get, I learned to stop talking as much. God gave me 2 ears, 1 mouth. So now when I speak, it's not as much, but when I do speak, I notice it comes with a lot more authority because people are paying attention more. So when I was younger, I needed to learn how to look at the conditions. And it's like we just finished avalanche training. And in the avalanche training, here we are, and we're trying to predict where the avalanche is going to come. It's actually easy if you know the signs. You just got to look at the snow, and you have to chop into it and assess the snow, look at the grains of the snow, see what the pack looks like, the shelf itself, find out if it's, there's a lot to it. It's complicated, but if you know it, it's not complicated. That's like leadership. It's actually not complicated if you know it. But how do you know it? How do you know what conditions to look for? You need to team up with a mentor. Navigators listen to others. I've got a council of about 6 people in my life. And now if those 6 people speak to me and say A instead of B, I go with A, because those 6 people have made me a lot of money in my life. I listen to them because they are mentors in my life. If Tony Robbins sends me a text and says, I need you to do this with your attitude, believe you me, I don't even question, because he's earned it. He's earned the right to speak into my life as my mentor. So you got to have mentors in your life that are able to speak into your life. And as a leader, you can't have the people that you're leading do that. You need people that are above you that can see your junk and call it junk when it's junk. And so that's one of the things, is we have to listen to others, get lots of counsel. The book of Proverbs says that, there is wisdom in a multitude of counselors. Remember that. There is wisdom in a multitude of counselors. Navigators balance both fact and faith. This is an important one. Listen to me on this real quick. We're wrapping this up. Actually, I think that's the last one. We balance with both fact and faith. And I underlined a few statements that John says in his book. A leader has to possess a positive attitude. But you've also got to have faith that you're going to make it. But having faith, having a positive attitude, you can sit there all day with faith and a positive attitude and say, I'm going to win the lotto tonight. I'm going to win the lotto tonight. I have faith. I'm going to win the lotto tonight. I hate to tell you, if you don't go out and buy the lotto ticket, you have 0 chance of winning the lotto. So you can have all the faith in the world that you're going to win the lotto. But unless you get up, go out to the store, give them $1 to get the lotto ticket, you're not going to even win. Your chances of winning the lotto are like 1 in whatever, 40 million or whatever the number is, right? So again, fact or fiction. You're better off not thinking, I'm going to win the lotto. That's some faith and facts that are just, yeah. Instead, I am going to win the lotto because I'm going to work harder every single day at my job, and I'm going to get smarter, because on my day off, I'm going to start studying leadership techniques and going to seminars each month, attending groups at a church or at an organization or at a nonprofit that's teaching, or maybe take a class on leadership, start reading more books on leadership, start watching some TED Talks on leadership. And in doing so, that's the best part. You're going to be able to start taking both fact and fiction, fact and faith. And the fact and the faith are hand in hand. See, I have faith that I'm going to build this organization called Jonathan's Refuge, TCI, the Church of Inclusion, and GCS, and all these things. I wrote this all up, the entire church instruction, everything, many decades ago. I have the writings to this day. And over the time, I kept that vision in the front and forefront of my mind. And I'd been designing it this whole time. And then all of a sudden, one day came, and I had the chance to take my faith, my positive attitude, and action, the missing ingredient. Because faith without works is dead. God said faith without works is dead. So if you say, I have faith, I'm going to pay my rent this month, but didn't go to work, I hate to tell you, the fact is you're going to get evicted. So you can have all the faith, but God's going to pay it. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. You have to have faith, but you need action to go with that faith. And that's one of the things that leaders do in navigating. They keep a balance of the faith, the positive attitude, but with facts. Are you, I'm trying to lose weight. I want to lose 280 pounds. That's what I used to say. I had a picture on the wall. I had a body that I wanted to look like. I put my face picture on it. And I said, that's me right there. That is my body. Now, it wasn't my body, but I said it was. Now, if that was all I did, I would still be a fat guy. But I took in steps. And I said, okay, to get that body, I got to go walk. And I went and walked 4 miles. 280 pounds later, I finally got to where I wanted to be and got my goals. So as I close this, whatever you're trying to do in your life right now, look at the law of navigation and see how it can help you navigate. I encourage you to read the story of David in the Bible. He's probably one of the greatest to navigate. It's a wonderful example. And if you really want to pick up a great book, I encourage you to pick up John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. He's changed my life for the last 30 years. I know he'll change yours. As we leave, I want to end by saying this. At TCI, as the Archbishop of this church, this organization, I am so honored to get your phone calls to pray for you. Anything you need, please reach out to us. We love you. There's a lot of our people that don't know how to help, and they're like, how do we get plugged in? Reach out to us. We have so many outings. We have so many things that we do. We've got ocean cruising boats, but need help from people to help us take people out. We've got, big buses to take them to the mountains, and we got all this stuff, but we still need more volunteers. So we need people like you that want to change the world with us. We love you guys. God bless. You know the drill, right? Live positive, but as we do, let's go out there and coexist with everyone peacefully. God bless.